My 14-year-old son, Ethan, has always been fascinated by quantum physics. While other kids his age were playing video games or scrolling through TikTok, he would sit for hours reading textbooks and watching lectures from MIT's OpenCourseWare. I'm a biochemist at the university, so our home has always been filled with scientific discussion, but quantum physics is far from my expertise. Still, I encouraged his interest, even when it occasionally went over my head. Last month, Ethan's science teacher assigned a research project where students could choose any scientific topic that interested them. Naturally, Ethan chose quantum entanglement. He spent weeks developing a theoretical model that attempted to visualize entanglement in a way that might be more intuitive for high school students. I watched him work diligently, staying up late, filling notebooks with equations and diagrams. When he showed me his final paper, I was genuinely impressed. The model he'd created was elegant and seemed to simplify some complex concepts in clever ways. I couldn't fully evaluate its scientific merit since it wasn't my field, but I was proud of his effort and creativity regardless. 3 days after he submitted the project, I received an email from Ms. Peterson, Ethan's science teacher, requesting a parent-teacher conference. The subject line read, "Urgent, academic integrity concern." My stomach dropped as I read her message. "I regret to inform you that Ethan's quantum entanglement project appears to contain material well beyond ninth grade level work. The theoretical model presented matches concepts found in advanced research papers. I need to discuss this plagiarism concern with you as soon as possible." When I showed Ethan the email, his face crumpled. "Mom, I didn't copy anything. I came up with it myself. I read a lot of papers for background, but the model is mine." I swear, I believed him. Ethan had never lied to me, and I'd witnessed his dedication to the project firsthand. Still, I understood the teacher's skepticism. The work was sophisticated, and it would be natural to question whether a 14-year-old could produce it independently. The next day, I joined a Zoom call with Ms. Peterson, a stern-looking woman with rectangular glasses and a tight bun. Ethan sat beside me, fidgeting nervously. "Mrs. Chun, I've been teaching for 20 years, she began after brief introductions. "I know when a student has received inappropriate levels of assistance. This model references concepts typically taught at graduate level." "Ms. Peterson," I replied calmly, "I understand your concerns, but Ethan developed this model himself. He's been studying quantum physics independently for years." She smiled thinly. "With all due respect, this work contains parallels to published research. Unless Ethan can explain his process and demonstrate that he truly understands these complex concepts, I'll have no choice but to give him a failing grade and report this violation to the academic board." Ethan's eyes welled up with tears, but he took a deep breath and began explaining his work. He walked through his thought process, the research he'd done, and how he'd developed his model. His explanation was articulate and passionate, showing a deep understanding of the subject matter. But Ms. Peterson remained unconvinced. She kept interrupting him with increasingly technical questions, clearly trying to trip him up. When Ethan successfully answered a particularly complex query about quantum decoherence, she pursed her lips and said, "Someone has clearly coached you very well." That's when I lost my patience. "Ms. Peterson, I appreciate your thoroughness, but this has gone far enough. Ethan created this work himself. If you're unfamiliar with the concepts he's discussing, perhaps we need input from someone with more expertise in quantum physics." Her nostrils flared. "Mrs. Chun, I have a master's degree in science education. I am perfectly capable of evaluating a ninth-grade science project. I don't doubt your qualifications for teaching high school science," I replied. "But quantum physics is a highly specialized field. Even I don't have the expertise to fully evaluate Ethan's work, and I'm a published researcher in biochemistry." That seemed to give her pause, but only briefly. If Ethan truly developed this model himself, I need to see substantial evidence. Otherwise, I stand by my assessment. I glanced at Ethan, who looked utterly defeated. This wasn't just about a grade. It was about his passion for science and his academic integrity being questioned. I made a quick decision. "Would you be open to discussing Ethan's work with a colleague of mine who specializes in quantum physics? He could provide an expert evaluation." Ms. Peterson smiled condescendingly. "If you feel that's necessary, though I doubt it will change my—" "Excellent," I interrupted. "Let me see if he's available now." I texted my colleague, Dr. James Lin, hoping he might be free. James and I had collaborated on several interdisciplinary research projects over the years, and he'd met Ethan several times at university functions. To my relief, James responded immediately, "Free for the next 30 minutes. Send Zoom link." I added him to our call, and when his face appeared on screen, Ms. Peterson's expression shifted subtly. "Thank you for joining us, Dr. Lin," I said. "This is Ethan's science teacher, Ms. Peterson. She has concerns about Ethan's quantum entanglement project and believes he may have plagiarized his work. I thought you might be able to evaluate his model. James nodded. Happy to help. Ethan, can you share your screen and walk me through your model? For the next 15 minutes, Ethan presented his work while James listened intently, occasionally asking insightful questions that Ethan answered confidently. Ms. Peterson remained silent, her expression gradually changing from skepticism to uncertainty. When Ethan finished, James smiled broadly. This is fascinating work, Ethan. Your visualization approach is quite innovative. It reminds me somewhat of Yao's lattice model, but you've taken it in a different direction that actually simplifies certain conceptual barriers. Ms. Peterson cleared her throat. Dr. Lin, while I appreciate your input, I'm still concerned about the advanced nature of this work. It seems implausible that a ninth grader could. Actually, James interrupted gently. I find it entirely plausible. I've met many young prodigies over the years, and Ethan's approach shows exactly the kind of creative thinking we often see in young minds not yet constrained by conventional academic frameworks. He turned to Ethan. Have you considered how this model might apply to quantum computing algorithms? Ethan's face lit up. Yes, I was thinking it could help visualize quantum gates in a more intuitive way, especially for explaining superposition states. They launched into a technical discussion that quickly went over both my and Ms. Peterson's heads. I noticed her expression shifting from disbelief to discomfort as she realized she might have made a serious error in judgment. After a few minutes, James paused and addressed Ms. Peterson directly. I believe there's been a misunderstanding here. Not only is this work original, but it's also quite promising. In fact, with some refinement, it might even be publishable in an undergraduate journal. I'd be happy to mentor Ethan through that process if he's interested. Ms. Peterson's mouth opened and closed silently. Finally, she managed to say, I see. Well, that would certainly be impressive. James smiled. Ethan, would you mind if I share something with your teacher? It might provide some helpful context. Ethan nodded, looking confused but curious. Ms. Peterson, I actually recognize your name from Ethan's mother's mentions of his school. I've been informally mentoring Ethan in quantum physics for about 2 years now, mostly through book recommendations and occasional discussions when I visit the university. His understanding is exceptional, but I assure you, this work is his own. I was quite impressed when his mother shared it with me last week. Ms. Peterson's face had gone pale. I appreciate the clarification, Dr. Lin. I'm simply trying to maintain academic integrity in my classroom. A noble goal, James replied. Though in this case, your skepticism might have discouraged a promising young scientist. I'm sure that wasn't your intention. Of course not, she said quickly. Ethan, I apologize for questioning your work. It seems I underestimated your capabilities. What James hadn't mentioned, and what I had purposely held back, was that he wasn't just any quantum physicist. Last October, Dr. James Lin had been awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for his groundbreaking work on quantum entanglement interfaces. His face had been in newspapers worldwide, but Ms. Peterson clearly hadn't recognized him. After the call ended, Ethan received not only full credit, but also an invitation to present his project at the district science fair. Ms. Peterson became unexpectedly supportive, even helping arrange for him to visit a university quantum computing lab.